Good morning. This is Dawn Olson of Glosslip.com, and I'm here with, as you can see, Andrew Morton. And Andrew was kind enough to squeeze me into his very busy schedule. He's here in New York doing all kinds of promotional things for his book, the Tom Cruise Unauthorized Biography, and he has been kind enough to grant me an interview. So we're going to tape this up, and it will go up on the site along with a very nice review of his book. So I'm gonna step aside and just kind of ask off camera Andrew some questions. We're going to start with, why Tom Cruise?
Well, quite frankly, like many other people, I watched him abusing Oprah's sofa a couple of years ago, and he's someone who's a bit like Madonna in the sense that he's very kind of controlled, very tightly wrapped. And so what was going on here was the equivalent to, say, a Madonna type personality losing the plot, and people were talking about his faith, Scientology. So look at both of them. So in a way, being a biographer is always the exploration of your own ignorance, which is what this was about. Is, you don't know much about it, let's find out a little bit more.
Now, did you know a lot about Scientology before you began writing the book about Tom?
No, not much at all. I mean, I literally started from a clean sheet. I just found it fascinating that this character had such influence, not just in Hollywood but around the world, that he was able to say all kinds of things almost unchecked, and that he was behaving in a way which resembled that of a teenage boy. I mean, here was a man who was at that age, 42, already had 2 children, 2 marriages behind him, endless girlfriends, jumping up and down on a sofa in front of millions of people, declaring his love for someone who he'd only known for a few days. And whilst you can put that down to exuberance, when I was actually looking at his life, I also discovered that just a few weeks before he'd been going out with a girl called Sofia Vergara, this Colombian model. So she could have been the next Mrs. Cruise. So, what's going on in his head?
Do you think now? And when you were, covering this material, did you? And I know you detailed this in the book about how Katie sort of just disappeared briefly. She came for what is considered a casting call, perhaps, at the Church of Scientology. She's one of the few who was willing to show up. Apparently, her car was a disaster. He went and had her car cleaned. She meets Tom. They take off for a romantic ride, and then she disappears for 13 days. Do you?
Apparently goes off to Telluride up in his place up in Colorado on a kind of get to know you type thing. But it's very interesting that within a matter of weeks, she's the one.
Right.
And it's interesting that whilst I didn't want to press it too far, having been known for my book on Princess Diana, there are remarkable similarities between the courtship of Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes and Princess Diana and Prince Charles. They knew each other for a matter of days before the engagement was announced. Very quickly got married, and had children. But also before that, both Katie and Diana were in love, as it were, with the idea of getting married, one to Prince Charles, one to Tom Cruise. Katie used to tell her sisters that one day she'd get married to Tom Cruise, and this wasn't just a kind of a teenage fantasy. When she was on Dawson's Creek, she said the same thing to her co-stars, and they all used to tease her about it. So it's interesting how it's made manifest.
And interestingly enough, with Princess Diana, it was a fairy tale turned into a nightmare. Mm-hmm. And many people, I know there's a site that's dedicated called Free Katie, mm-hmm. and they're dedicated to the idea that Katie is being kind of held against her will, a prisoner of Scientology in a way. Do you feel that way after writing this book?
Well, there's certainly the argument that she's some kind of Stepford wife. That is to say that her mind has been altered and so on. I mean, certainly people who know Sofia Vergara, people who know Penelope Cruz have said that these are 2 women who are very strong-willed, and that they watched as Katie was drawn into Tom Cruise and the world of Planet Tom, as it were, where you're surrounded constantly by Scientologists, where in a way as a precondition to getting married to Tom, she became a Scientologist, and the other 2 weren't inclined to do that.